Welcome to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BetSperts. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and apologies, folks. We know we're just about a minute late. I had to mess around with some stuff to make sure that hopefully my audio and video quality is pretty good. How do I look, Andy?
You look about how you always look. I mean, I don't think any camera's going to improve on that. But no, we are here on a Tuesday. Haven't lost a basketball game all week on my end because mine got Rona'd along with everything else. You did well yesterday. Wizards +7. Didn't they win by like 20? Yeah, I think they won by like 20. So, and now they're done playing for a while because we have serious issues in the NBA all of a sudden. So it'll be curious to see how this all hashes out. Kind of a different episode today. We do our little planning and we put in what we're betting on that day. Excuse me. And Alex put in I don't have anything I'm betting on the NBA tonight. And I'm like, shit, I don't have anything I'm betting on college basketball, but maybe an important lesson in there's not always something to bet on. It's kind of a poopy slate for college basketball. There are quite a few decent games. Not to say don't watch. Wisconsin, Michigan is going to be a great game. I just don't have any actionable angles in any of these. I'm looking at a couple totals as I'm starting to sharpen up my total model a little more for the stretch run here, but nothing popping today. So I'll let Alex just kind of talk through some NBA. We'll get a tennis pick quick, and then we'll get into some golf talk.
Yeah, it's a, we've got Tuesday night, another big night in the NBA. So we've got 6 games here. And like you said, it was a good segue, a lot of coronavirus issues here. So a lot of reasons, frankly, not to bet games. The first game that's up is the Miami Heat against my Philadelphia 76ers. Don't bet this game until maybe half an hour before the game. Even then, you probably shouldn't. We don't know who's going to be playing, who's in, who's out. I have a sneaking suspicion this game might even end up being postponed given some of the COVID issues. Now, if everyone shows up and they play, could be a really fun basketball game. The total at 209.5 is criminally low if everyone's playing in this game. So if you start to see some news that people are playing, start to jump on that total because that should be in the 220s probably. Looking at the next game, Utah versus Cleveland here. Would really like to bet Cleveland, but still dealing with a ton of injuries there. This is a really bad rest spot for them. I believe it's their 3rd and 4th, possibly a back-to-back. Also really tough going against the Utah Jazz here. The line's sitting right about 10. I'm going to keep watching this one all day. It's been pretty flat. If Utah takes a little bit of money, like I think they might and they have so far this season, if this gets to 11, maybe 12, I'll be sure to grab a little bit of that. Make sure you follow me on BetSperts. Alex Christensen, no space there. And you'll see that pick come out when I do make it. Denver versus Brooklyn, the total's at 231. Obviously, if you guys have been watching the show, you know that there has been a lot of unders for me this season. I would love to bet an under here, but Denver has been a stone cold over team this year. I think the most profitable team when betting over so far this season. And we have Kevin Durant coming back for the Brooklyn Nets tonight, so a little bit different dynamic there. Lakers in Houston, line looks pretty solid to me. I'm seeing 5.5, a total of 222.5. Just about what I make those numbers there. So no angles for me there. Spurs and Thunder, 2 of the most profitable teams to bet on this season. And it's a shame that I'm not going to get a chance to back either one since they're playing against each other. Spurs -2, Oklahoma City. The total's right around 219. We in San Antonio here. I think they've been playing some nicer basketball. Kind of a basketball part of my brain looking at it from a matchup perspective. I like the Spurs roster a lot better. I think they actually line up nicely and can attack some of the things that Oklahoma City can't do. But, line looks pretty solid to me again. Maybe again later in the day as some of the lineups firm up, and maybe I'll grab this as well. And then the last line, Indiana versus Golden State. Indiana's been a really solid team this year to bet on. They're +3 in this situation. Golden State starting to coalesce a little bit. We see Steph Curry. He's recovered from those horrible cornrows he had to start the season and seems to finally be shooting better and doing a little better on the court. So I'm going to back away here. I don't think we have enough information on this Golden State team yet to really make a action. So 6 games. Unfortunately, nothing there for me yet. Like I said, I'm going to be watching the Cleveland Cavaliers line, see if that's sort of something. I'm going to grab some there. And then San Antonio, if their whole roster's healthy here, I might end up grabbing some that -2. And just make sure you follow me again on the BetSperts app so you can see if I send those picks out.
And then, like I said, one tennis match you're betting. I'm running hot in tennis right now, just tailing some other people. I don't think I haven't bet very many matches, but I am riding the Hubie Hurkitz train to a championship, I think, in Delray Beach. But you have a ladies pick. That's kind of the way you operate. More WTA and another
I
total.
do.
You've done well in the totals this year.
Totals have been very, very good. And one of the best players, frankly, to bet from a total perspective is Miss Sabalenka, who's going to play Veronika Kudermetova in the finals of Abu Dhabi. It should be happening overnight. I think the start time looks like it's around maybe 3 or 4 in the morning Eastern time. So if you're a really early riser, you might get a chance to bet that there. Sabalenka is a great player, though, from another perspective. A lot of her matches end up going 3 sets. We have 2 really solid servers here of the ball, so I actually expect there to be a lot of holds here. Basically, what that means is, we're going to run through a lot of games. I think that there's a chance we might even see a tiebreaker here. So if you have that at your book, yes or no, there'll be a tiebreaker, over 0.5 tiebreakers, they sometimes call it. I like that here. I think we're going to see a long match, so happy to grab the over here.
I dig it. And before we get into anything else here, I have been informed by the powers that be that we have put a hard date limit on the WinBet promo offer. I mean, you can still use the links. You can still get the free $100 or the free up to $500 risk-free bet. That's something that we're going to always offer through our links that are always in the YouTube description and on Twitter. But sweatshirt offer expires week from tomorrow. Next Wednesday will be the last day we'll be accepting those because we want to finish up this promo, get it all together, figure out how we're going to ship all these out and get them out to everybody right away. So not only you could get the Deep Dive hoodie or the Bet Spurts Under Armour hoodie, which is pretty nice too. So 1 week from tomorrow, Wednesday, is the deadline for that. And without further ado, it's another recurring guest. We had him on last week. I brought him in a little early because honestly, this is selfish. I've entered a contest, and there's a lot of betting contests and things like that are betting adjacent that we all do. Everyone does Survivor leagues in NFL too. So I needed someone to come and talk me through this. So James Mazzola, For Profit Podcast. I think his podcast dropped earlier today. He talked about the tournament that's going on this week, but I'm going to bug him a lot more about the one and dones this week. So further ado, James, how we doing out there on the West Coast? I know it's super early.
Yeah, just waking up, having my oatmeal while I listen to you guys chat a little NBA. I'm looking forward to the slate. I grind a lot of DFS, NBA DFS, actually every single day. So your information it's good stuff. I enjoy it. But yeah, doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
Good. And like I said, I felt you get this FOMO. It's like, there are second chances in the NFL, but if you don't get in a Survivor League and everybody's talking about it, sucks. It's like, it's not something, you can always bet the games every week, but it's something you have to hit from the beginning. This is the same thing. A couple people that I chat with were doing one and dones last year, and I forgot to enter, and I just got busy, and I felt shitty, and I felt left out. So, I got into a couple. Some of them start this week. I know they all don't start this week. You were running one personally that doesn't start for 2 weeks?
It'll start next week with the American Express.
Next week,
yeah, stateside. I like that as a starting point. Get everyone's feet underneath them, and go out to the desert in La Quinta and get it going there in California. So,
sure. And anybody who doesn't know, you want to explain one and done. I mean, I compared it to Survivor already. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, basically, you pick one golfer every single week from whenever the start date is. So in my case, the American Express next week up until the Tour Championship, right? So I believe the Tour Championship, they moved it up into September now. So it's a long haul. Most of it is broke down into segments. So mine will have 4 separate segments. So if you're out of it for some reason, you can always win a segment. Keep it interesting, keep it fun. You can't use that golfer again, and basically that golfer's prize winnings, their money earned for that week, is your quote point total, and whoever has the most at the end of the segment, end of the season, you win some cash.
I kind of like that. It's kind of like the Circa or the Super Contest where you can win a quarter. So even if you're out of it, you don't have to just go stupid catch up strategy. You can try to win the fourth quarter or something like that. So,
for sure, keeps it more interesting.
And again, I said this was selfish. I said this was me just, I could bug you off air, but I might as well make content out of it too. But I mean, this is something you have to plan ahead. And I know there's websites like this that you can do again with NFL Survivor. You can kind of plan out your grid, but you almost have to sit down, look at the rules of your one and done, map out every tournament they're going to play, and then start picking out here's a few guys that I might want to use in that tournament, and then start looking like, well, I have this guy listed 6 times. I need to weight this, figure out, what's the process there without giving too much away. Cause I know you're dickish enough that you would win your own your OAD. Like you would have no. Oh, it's easier. You don't have to pay out as much of the pot. That's one less payment.
Much more simple.
I do enough payouts, that's for sure. So first and foremost, you have to figure out how many people you have in the contest, right? So if it's 100-person contest, which would be, I would consider that relatively small, or 1,000-person contest out there, which there are plenty of those. That's going to, make your picks differentiate, right? So you might as well go more chalky with the 100-person contest. Grab the guys that are going to be, used heavily, but you have to probably get a little more contrarian in those bigger contests. If 60% of the field's on a guy, you probably want to shy away from him, right? So that's the first step. But then secondly, I do this more mentally because I'm lazy and I don't really feel like, putting pen on paper. I just have just power rankings in general of the top. I think there's something like probably 35, 40 tournaments in the season. So I'll have a top 40 guys. And so my goal is to always pick from that top 40. Like I'm not trying to dip in to the, into the lower level of dudes. You can even just take the world rankings and use that as your top 50, top 40, and just make sure you're staying within that every single week. You don't have to get down into the deep dives. It's just really not necessary. There's not enough tournaments to be able to have to do that. What most people make the mistake is they do dive too low early in the season because they want to quote unquote save. And by the end of the year, there's a bunch of guys you should have used at some point that you can't because you're running out of tournaments now, right? So that would be kind of my strategy for it. Again, I do it mentally. You could just take the world golf rankings, top 50, and that could be your list, or you can make your own power rankings, which just sounds, more similar to what you're doing. All 3 of those totally viable strategies.
I was interested to hear you say, talk about trying to fade guys you think groups are going to use a lot. How do you start to assess that week to week? I mean, obviously you start with probably the betting favorites, but as you're starting to look through, how do you try to get a feel for, this group really likes these guys, I think we're going to see, 75% of people play him, so I'm going over here. How do you start to do that? What's your process look like there?
Some of the sites do it for you, believe it or not. Like they'll keep the statistics for you right there. So, I depending on what site you're playing on, you may just have that information readily available, which is nice. The other way to do it, like you said, the betting markets. And then here's the thing, people love guys who have played well on the course, right? So if you just correlate the betting market to who's played well there, the best there in the past, that's going to be a guy who's going to be the highest owned, right? So this week, Webb Simpson's going to be pretty highly owned. I think Sung Jae In will be highly owned because, those guys have played well on this golf course. But more importantly, they're the top of the market. Morikawa, he will probably be a guy that people will wait on. They'll want to use him for majors or for some higher prize earning tournaments, because that's another thing you have to keep in mind. And I probably should have mentioned this before, but, these guys, you earn more in the majors. The 4 majors are the highest earning tournaments, and then the WGCs are just right below that. So, and you're going to get 4 WGCs this year. So those are like the 8 tournaments where you're going to want to use your best guys in those tournaments because you're going to win the most amount of money there, right? You don't want to use the middle of the pack, the middle of your power rankings, unless you have, some kind of a really good feeling, or, for whatever. But I'm using my top guys for the highest, the tournament to do spit out the highest prize entry or prize money, right? So this is one of the lower ones, the Sonians. So no real reason to, burn someone super, super good like a Morikawa, and even a Sung Jae might be a little bit too early for him as well.
I like that you touched on that part of the rules where it's tied to how much money you win. I really love that. That's a great way of, instead of coming with some sort of weird point system, just like we're going to do it by the dollars. Bigger tournaments matter more. Are there any other interesting rule variants you've seen? I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to do this. Are there ways you like to do it, not like to do it? There's some rules you've seen where you kind of scratch your head and think maybe people shouldn't do something like that?
So I'm trying something new in mind, and it starts next week, where you get 1 mulligan after the first round. So you have up to 24 hours until lock to change your pick one time. Now, you can use this for a withdrawal. Like if someone hits a shot, grabs their back, they're out. That's just a 0 for the week. You can use it for that within the first 24 hours. Or if someone shits the bed, shoots 76, 77, they have no chance to make the cut, you can pop him out for a new guy 1 time per year. So you get once for the entire season. There's all kinds of different things. Like if you forget to set your guy, it'll automatically grab you like the 30th ranked player or something like that, which I don't like. I think you should have to, you have to be accountable and make your picks.
A little accountability, yeah.
Yeah, I have partners. Like I won't do this by myself because I'm afraid because I'll go on like some kind of a weekend or weekday bender and just like forget my picks. So I always have a partner to be able to run this by and do this with, which is another fun thing. You know, if you have a buddy who likes to play golf, just go half and half, and you guys both have access to it. Then you can't forget, right? So those are the main little differences in from tournament to tournament. But mostly it's the segments, right? It's when the segment ends. I'm going to try and make that majors the ending of a segment. It might be a little bit tough because majors are kind of stacked on top of each other this year. But generally speaking, those are kind of the differences between pool to pool.
Yeah, a couple good points. I read up a little, and I've done a little. I've done these in the past, and I've done horrible at them. But I mean, there is no worse feeling. It's like looking at there is no comparison to this in other deals like this, like a Survivor. If you get to the last 5 tournaments and you have like 7 guys in the top 15 left, that's a bad like you lost.
You did messed up.
If you have somebody that's in the top 10, top 15 that you won't get a chance to use, definitely keep track of that. It is, and I hadn't really thought about the size of the contest. You made a really good point. It's almost like comparing GPPs to cash games and DFS. Like your lineup, and anybody who does DFS, your lineup strategy for playing a head-to-head against one person compared to playing in the millionaire maker. Those are completely different kinds of strategies. You do need to dig deep. You need to find that unique lineup. You have to, a deep dive. You kind of shit on the words deep dive, which I didn't care for, but you do have to dig deeper and find someone, to be very contrarian to actually win one of those. Whereas a smaller one, you can go chalky and probably, like, if there's 40 tournaments, just use the 40 best guys. And unless you can see something coming, like Berger coming out of the break last year, how much Harris English has come on over the past, like, where do you think Harris English was ranked in the before the Rona break?
Yeah, I mean, he was almost nowhere to be found. He played so well down the stretch. He was on the Corn Ferry Tour 2019, right? So, I mean, you're looking at a guy who's come up. The other thing I will add, and this is super important too, is you have to remember these guys aren't playing every single week. Like, you get a guy like Brooks Koepka, who is clearly he's not a full load kind of guy. Like, he's going to play the biggest tournaments. He'll play a couple warm-up tournaments before those biggest tournaments, but he's not playing the Sony. He's not playing next week. So you also remember that, right? So, like, some of the best guys will only play, maybe 12, 13, 14 times a year, whereas you're always going to have the middle of the pack dudes there if you have to go to those guys, right? So planning out can be a little difficult because you don't necessarily know where they're going to play and what they're going to do. But if you can, that's why it's important to just go ahead and fire on some of the top guys when you can, because you may not be able to use them down towards the end.
Sure. All right, and then I think I entered like Mayo's and another smaller one, and I know some of the Fantasy National guys are doing one, but you have a site that runs it or something. I'm guessing you tweeted it out. It's somewhere on your Twitter. You can find it.
Yes, it's $53. $3 goes to office pools, or office football pools. I'm going to be sending emails out every single day for those who have signed up the previous day. So I don't want to hop off here. I'm going to send out an email with the invite link to everyone who has paid. Super simple. Most people have used it for something, so I figured whatever.
I've used Office Football Pool. I've used that website for a few
years. So. Everyone has an account. So that's what we're doing.
And then just this week, I know it's Tuesday. We haven't got everything. Some markets tend to be in flux a little on Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, due to some outstanding, betting at certain books. So it's kind of a goofy time to be looking at head-to-heads. But I know you bet some outrights early on in the week.
Yeah.
We had Patrick Reed pull out. He kind of goofed up the top of the market. Some of the chalk shot up and the prices dropped on some of those guys. But do you got a couple of outrights that are somewhere near some prices you would still bet for the Sony this week?
Yeah, actually, I just saw a Sungjae at over 20, which I think is a great bet. The guy, this is an interesting golf course. You're basically, I to be honest, not a huge fan of this tournament. It ends up turning into a putting contest. Basically, you have to finish in the top 5 in putting to win. So eliminate all the guys who suck with the flat stick. Just get rid of them right now. And good luck trying to find who's going to get hot. That's the problem, right? It's very random when it comes to putting. So that's the first thing. Sungjae can get as hot as anyone with the putter. Great all-around game at 20. I have him, closer to 15, closer to the top of this market. The other guy I like is Lanto Griffin. If you're a course history truther, which I'm not, but some people are, he played well here last year. Also a guy who has shown the ability to gain 5-6 strokes putting and has been hitting it great. You're finding him anywhere in 40 to 50s. Those are the two guys I prefer the most. And then in terms of fades, I've made 4 full tournament bets, and I'm fading Decky, Cam Smith, Kuchar, and Charles Howell III. Decky is one of the worst players on tour. He lost almost 10 strokes putting last week. The dude is absolutely lost on the green. So in a tournament where that's going to be important, love the fade of him. But those are the head-to-heads that I'm looking at. I have Sungjae over Decky, Neiman over Cam Smith, ZJ over Kuchar, Harman over CH3. All those are basically pick'ems.
Yeah, I mean, you talked way too fast for me to even write any of those down. So I'm just going to go to your Twitter. I listed it earlier. It said
It'll all be
as
there.
JD. Yeah, you'll have all that stuff listed. Everything you ever bet you put out on Twitter.
Beautiful
So
little table.
Just the weekly
very
table.
Nice, very nice
I
little
love it.
table.
Makes me so happy.
I love it.
So yeah, and then back to the one and dones. If you are, if it's too late in the game for you, there are some that are going to start next week. There's some that started last week, which is insanity.
Yeah,
I think using last week's tournament was silly. I'm perfectly fine with ones. I have on my calendar. I have a section of time chunked out tomorrow to get all my stuff lined up. So, no, really appreciate the time. Sorry we didn't have much basketball to bet on today, but yeah, a couple outright looks from JD there. I don't hate that. So, really just the one tennis bet today. So
it's a light day. Take a little break,
Brown bag
hang out with the kids.
Yeah, a little light day. So Sabalenka. You say the second one there, Alex?
Kudermatova
over 20 and a half
Kuder
games.
monster.
Absolutely. Great job, Alex. That is impressive. You're so good.
You kind of nailed that. And then I made this one really quick while we were talking.
Oh.
Look at that golf. Sung JM, Lanto Griffin. No, is it Lanto or Lanto? I've had this argument with a lot of people.
Great question. Tomato, bro. I don't know.
They just call him, I've heard announcers say it both ways. Drives me up the wall. So
Lanto sounds cooler. Let's go with
Lanto does sound cooler. So all right. Until tomorrow, we're going to do some breakdown tomorrow of the college football season, and then there are actually early odds up for next year. It's how you get a good price, except when Alabama wins every year. So sorry about that, but there are always early Heisman markets too to be looking at, and I'm sure we'll dig into that. So thanks a lot, James. Again,
thanks, guys.
Check him out on Twitter, and we'll catch you tomorrow.